help us understand first what the situation is now on the Chinese stock market? I mean, they had suspended thousands of stocks. Some of them, I believe, had opened back up for trading. They had ordered a lot of large shareholders not to sell. They are still holding the stocks unless they've decided to actually buy more. What's the story right now?
I think the big story is that the Shanghai Composite has increased by 13% since July. But the reason is that the Chinese central government has put something like 800 billion to 1 trillion renminbi into the market. So, of course, they're going to have an increase in the shares. Now, they're at about the 4,000 level in the Shanghai Composite. Their target, which they announced in early July, is 4,500. Yes, it probably will get there, but it's not a real stock market anymore. It's not functioning like a stock market.
What do Chinese officials, I mean, surely they must understand how real stock markets are supposed to function. It seems a little odd for the government to set a stock market target. How do they defend this action, or how do they discuss it amongst themselves?
Well, you know, for them, it's really a matter of legitimacy of the Communist Party. So it is an existential matter. And you know, they've had stock markets in the People's Republic since 1991, and they haven't really gotten too much better in terms of liberalization. Yes, they look like our stock markets. Stocks go up and they go down. Well, now they only go up because of the government. But I think this really is a problem, because for a functioning stock market, you need to have an open system. They can't have an open system in China because the Communist Party won't let it. And that's really going to be the issue. Yes, you can buy, but you can't sell. They've actually criminalized selling in China these days.
What is the effect on the average person in China? I mean, I hear some people saying that the average person's wealth is 10% or more comprised of equities. On the other hand, I've heard some people say that only 10% of the people in China are exposed to the stock market.
Well, of course, very wealthy are in the stock market, but you do have, and recently you had a lot of sort of middle class and even very poor people come into the market because they saw it rise from basically a year ago. And so they thought, well, it's a one-way bet upward, you can't lose money. And so you have a lot of people who have piled into it. And that's what's made this political, because you have a lot of people who stand to lose substantial amounts. And because of that, we have seen consumption hurt. For instance, not only are luxury cars not being sold because of the stock market failure, but also mid-sized cars, you know, the mass market cars, they're also suffering problems right now because people had put their savings into the stock market. They now can't afford to buy cars.
Surely the long-term view, though, has to be that consumption will expand. I mean, you have 1 billion people, more and more moving into the middle class every year. They've got to buy vehicles, right?
Well, maybe yes, maybe no, because, you know, we have a Chinese economy right now that is plunging. It's not growing at the 7.0% that they claim. It's probably the 2.2 that they talk about in Beijing privately, and it could be even less than that. But the one thing is that this trend is down, and if they're not at 0% growth today, they're going to be there in 2 or 3 months. And so that doesn't mean, that's not a good story for consumption.
What does that mean for the rest of the region? I mean, what kind of effect will that have on the rest of Asia?
Well, it's already having an effect on Australia because they have basically an economy that is dependent on selling iron ore and other commodities to China. And also you're seeing problems in Taiwan, Malaysia, and a number of other countries that have been selling semi-processed components to Chinese manufacturers. That's also a problem. And then there's the currency war. Because of the devaluation that started last Tuesday, we have seen the Vietnamese force their dong down, which is really bad because this was an active intervention by Hanoi, but also you've seen the Australian dollar, you've seen the ringgit, the rupiah. They're all falling largely because of what's happening in China. And the other big victim, of course, is South Korea, which now has an economy very closely tied to China's.
So what does this look like, you think, at the end of the year? I mean, we talk about the fact that IPOs will probably be back on the table at the end of the year.
Maybe. That's a very political decision. And the decision is going to be made based not so much on market fundamentals, but what it means for not only the Communist Party, but also certain people in the party, because this is an intense fight right now among them. So whether we have IPOs or not, I don't know, but I think it's going to be not so much an economics decision, but one based upon the fortunes of particular leaders in the PBOC, the central bank, and in the Chinese Securities Regulatory Commission.
It'll basically be a political payout.
Yes, because someone is going to lose. They're talking about people getting fired, maybe even the premier losing his position at the next party Congress. So these are things that it's very hard for us to understand. But if you're going to look at market fundamentals with the economy going down, that would sort of suggest that we're not going to see a resumption of IPOs in 2015.